Hi there, this is Brian. I wanted to give a quick preview of assembling USD data inside of Blender with our USD Hydra plugin. So USD is Pixar's system for universal scene description for doing interop between different applications, and Hydra is a rendering system. So what we've done is we've built them in as a rendering plugin inside of Blender here. And you can actually select a lot of different rendering backends for USD. Right now we're using the Radeon ProRender one, and you can see we get really fast updates when we enable it here in the viewport. So right now we're just exporting the USD data, but what we'd like, the Blender data into USD, but what we'd like to be able to do is assemble all this USD data and be able to manipulate it in a node graph. You can see these little check marks that say use the USD node graph. So what we'll do is we actually also added a bit for creating this node graph for assembling and manipulating the USD data. And there's a couple of different nodes here. We can read in the Blender data, we can read in an external file. Right now I'll just set it up to read the Blender data here. And all that's doing is exporting the Blender USD data into USD format, and then a render tab here, and I can actually set up my render node to either use the final or for the viewport render. And then my read Blender data node, I can read in the entire scene or just one object or just one collection in Blender. So now that we've set this up, this is a pretty simple example. This is what was happening before, but we can see our USD data. We can inspect the hierarchy of all the data with the cube and the lights and everything going on there. So again, pretty simple example, and again, this is exactly what we had before when we were rendering, but now we're able to see what's going on into the USD data. And of course you could disable the checkbox here as well. So let's do something a little more complex. Let's say we had a background USD scene and we wanted to have that read in for rendering, but as we're working inside Blender and we're animating our object here, in this case a very simple cube, we don't need to be worrying about all that stuff in the background. So what I've set up is a read USD file node and read in a toy car object, and then I just merge them together here. Now what we see in the hierarchy of all the USD data, we can see all of our scene stuff is there as well. And then if we scroll down, we get the stuff from the toy car USDZ file, all of the objects and parts in that. And then when we go and hit render here, we can see there's the car and then the Blender data, and everything happens very quickly here. And so we're able to go and render stuff and move stuff around in the viewport quickly. It's not like loading up in the Blender memory, but we do get everything resolved at render time. So we don't have to have references inside of Blender or taking up memory inside of Blender. But we're able to, this is obviously a simple example, but you could assemble a really complex render node graph. So this is a quick preview of how this would work. We're looking to open up this plugin in November for people to take a look at. Thanks.